There comes a point in life when the noise begins to quiet. For many women, that moment arrives after crossing 40. The roles you've played as a daughter, a friend, a partner, a mother, a professional have all shaped you. But something shifts after 40. You begin to see life differently. You realize that time isn't infinite, that people come and go, and that what once mattered so much now feels less urgent. This stage of life is not about decline, it is about awakening. It's about stepping into the richest, most authentic version of yourself. Think of it as the season where wisdom meets courage. And today, I want to share with you 5 golden principles that can guide this new chapter of your life. Principles that don't just inspire you, but help you live with deeper meaning, purpose, and joy. Choose yourself without guilt. There comes a moment in every woman's life when she looks back and realizes just how much of herself she has poured into everyone else. The years before 40 are often spent giving, serving, adjusting, and stretching in ways that seem endless. You give to your children if you have them. You give to your family. You give to your career. You give to your community. And in between all that giving, you sometimes forget that you too are a person with needs, dreams, and desires that matter. After 40, life offers you a chance to pause and take inventory. You begin to recognize that the years ahead are just as important as the years behind you. And one of the most powerful lessons that emerges is this: you have to choose yourself without guilt. For many women, the very thought of putting themselves first feels uncomfortable. It almost feels wrong. You were taught that to be a good mother, you must always put your children first. To be a good partner, you must always prioritize your spouse. To be a good employee, you must always sacrifice your time. The pattern becomes so ingrained that by the time you hit 40, you may find yourself running on empty, not because you lack love or commitment, but because you have ignored the one person who also deserves your attention. You. Choosing yourself doesn't mean abandoning others. It doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities or walking away from the people who depend on you. It means recognizing that you are not a machine designed to give endlessly without pause. You are a human being with a soul that craves joy, creativity, rest, fulfillment. And when you deny yourself these things for too long, it doesn't make you stronger. It makes you tired. It makes you resentful. It makes you feel invisible. I remember listening to a woman who shared how she gave up her love for writing after she had kids. She thought she didn't have the time, and she convinced herself it was selfish to take an hour away from her family to sit with her journal. 20 years later, after her children had grown and left, she picked up the pen again. She said she could feel her soul breathing for the first time in decades. That is the power of choosing yourself. When you say yes to something that brings you alive, you bring a better version of yourself into every other role you carry. The world often tells women that their worth is measured by how much they can do for others. But the truth is, your worth isn't tied to self-sacrifice alone. It is found in balance. Think about it. How can you pour love into your family if your own cup is dry? How can you inspire your children to pursue their passions if you've locked away your own? How can you lead with clarity and strength if you are constantly depleted? Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is sustainable. Imagine for a moment that your life is a garden. For years, you've been watering everyone else's plants, making sure they grow, making sure they bloom. But if you never water your own, eventually your soil turns dry, your roots weaken, and your flowers wither. And when that happens, no one benefits. But when you tend to your own garden, when you give yourself care, attention, and nourishment, you not only grow stronger, but you have even more to share with those around you. The shift after 40 is an invitation to stop apologizing for needing time, space, or energy for yourself. It is an invitation to start saying no when your body says it's too much. It is an invitation to pick up that old hobby you loved, to travel somewhere new, to read a book without interruption, to take that class, to explore something that excites you. And most importantly, it is an invitation to stop feeling guilty for it. Because guilt is the silent thief of joy. Guilt tells you that choosing yourself is wrong. But guilt doesn't know the truth. The truth is, when you choose yourself, you don't diminish your ability to love others. You expand it. You come back to your family with more patience. You show up at work with more energy. You approach friendships with more presence. The people who love you the most don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be whole. So choosing yourself after 40 is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is the moment you decide that your story, your passions, and your health matter as much as the roles you play for others. It is the moment you take off the invisible chains of guilt and embrace the freedom of becoming fully alive. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. The world around you doesn't fall apart. It actually becomes brighter because you are finally shining from the inside out. Ready to find beauty and worth. There comes a time when a woman looks into the mirror and realizes that the reflection staring back at her has changed. The skin may not be as smooth, the lines may be more visible, the body may not look the same as it did at 20 or 30. And in that moment, so many women feel the weight of society's voice telling them they are losing something, that their beauty is fading, that they are somehow less valuable because youth has slipped away. But here is the truth that many discover: after 40, beauty does not fade, it evolves. Worth does not shrink with age, it expands. For too long, beauty has been defined by narrow standards: flawless skin, slim figures, youthful energy. Advertisements, magazines, and social media keep reinforcing that only the young and the polished are worthy of admiration. But real life tells a very different story. Real life shows us that beauty deepens as years pass. It moves from being about the surface to being about presence, about character, about the strength that only comes from lived experience. Think of a woman who has faced storms and yet stands tall. The lines on her face are not flaws. They are maps of her courage. The silver strands in her hair are not losses. They are medals of survival. The softness of her body is not weakness. It is the mark of a life that has carried children, carried burdens, carried joy and sorrow alike. That is not less beauty, that is more. When you begin to redefine beauty after 40, you step away from comparison. You stop chasing the image of someone half your age and start embracing the radiance that only you can carry. There is a light in your eyes now that wasn't there before, the light of wisdom, of self-knowledge, of resilience. People don't remember you because of how flat your stomach was or how smooth your skin looked. They remember how you made them feel. They remember the warmth of your smile, the strength of your presence, the gentleness of your words. That is beauty. And along with redefining beauty comes the deeper shift of redefining worth. For so long, many women measure their worth by what they provide for others, by how much they can give, by how well they can serve, by how closely they can fit the mold society sets for them. But worth is not something you earn. Worth is something you already have. It does not rise and fall based on your age, your dress size, or your bank account. It is woven into who you are. When you recognize your worth, you stop apologizing for existing. You stop hiding your true self just to fit in. You stop thinking you are too old to chase a dream or too late to make an impact. You understand that every season of your life carries value, and that this season, life after 40, is one of the richest of all. I remember hearing about a woman in her 50s who left a corporate job to finally pursue her passion for baking. She opened a small bakery, not because she wanted fame or fortune, but because it made her come alive. Her friends told her it was too late to start over, but she knew her worth was not tied to their timelines. She knew her worth was tied to living authentically. And in that little bakery, she found more joy, more purpose, and yes, more beauty than she ever did in the years when she tried to fit into someone else's definition of success. When you redefine beauty and worth, you begin to live with freedom. You no longer chase approval from a world that is never satisfied. You no longer feel ashamed of your body changing because you know it is evidence of your story. You no longer doubt your value because you know it cannot be reduced to numbers or appearances. This is the gift of crossing 40. It is the invitation to see beauty not in perfection, but in authenticity. To see worth not in what others think of you, but in who you truly are. And once you see it, once you believe it, you will never again stand in front of the mirror and feel less. You will see yourself as you always were, worthy, radiant, and deeply beautiful. Invest in health, not just wealth. There is a point in life when you realize that the things you used to chase no longer carry the same weight. In your 20s and 30s, the race often feels like it's about building, achieving, collecting. A bigger house, a better car, a higher position, a stronger bank account. And while there is nothing wrong with creating financial stability, there comes a time after 40 when you begin to notice something else. All the wealth in the world means very little if your body does not have the strength to carry you, if your mind does not have the peace to enjoy it, and if your heart does not have the energy to live it. That is why this stage of life calls for a shift. It is the time to invest in health, not just wealth. Health is not something you can buy when it runs out. You cannot swipe a card to purchase more energy. You cannot withdraw youth from an account when your body feels worn. And yet so many people neglect their health until it becomes urgent. They tell themselves they are too busy to exercise, too tired to cook a healthy meal, too overwhelmed to rest. They believe they are saving time, but in truth, they are borrowing it from the future. After 40, that debt begins to show up in the form of aches, fatigue, stress, or illness. Imagine for a moment that your body is the vehicle that carries you through life. You would never ignore the warning lights on your car dashboard, yet so often you ignore the signals your body sends. The headaches, the sleepless nights, the heavy breathing when you take the stairs, the constant fatigue. These are not random inconveniences. They are reminders that your body is asking for care. And unlike a car, you cannot trade your body in for a new model. You only get one. Investing in health is not only about avoiding disease, it is about creating the conditions to live fully. A walk each morning may seem small, but it strengthens your heart and clears your mind. Choosing water over sugary drinks may feel trivial, but it protects your body in ways you cannot see immediately. Sleeping a full night instead of pushing through with caffeine is not laziness, it is recovery. These daily investments compound just like financial savings, and the return is priceless. The ability to live with strength, clarity, and joy. But health is not only physical. Mental and emotional health are equally vital. Carrying unresolved stress, resentment, or loneliness can be just as damaging as poor diet or lack of exercise. Countless studies show that strong emotional well-being adds years to life expectancy. Relationships, laughter, gratitude, and inner peace have measurable effects on your body. When you sit down for dinner with people you love, when you spend time in nature, when you take a moment to breathe deeply, you are not wasting time, you are strengthening your health. I once heard about a woman who built an incredible career, worked tirelessly, and accumulated great wealth. But she neglected herself in the process. By her late 40s, she faced a serious health crisis that forced her to step away from everything. She later said, if she could go back, she would have traded half her earnings for the strength to simply walk in the park without pain. That is the lesson so many realize too late. Money without health is like water without a cup. You can see it, but you cannot hold it. The choice to invest in health is a choice of discipline, but also of love. It is love for your future self who wants to travel, to play with grandchildren, to pursue passions without being limited by preventable struggles. It is love for the people who depend on you, who would rather have more years with you than more gifts from you. This stage of life is not about chasing endless wealth. It is about building sustainable health. When you take care of your body, your mind, and your heart, everything else becomes richer. Wealth can buy comfort, but only health can give you the freedom to enjoy it. And when you start prioritizing health, you discover that it is the greatest investment you will ever make. One that pays you back every single day. You wake up with strength, clarity, and the ability to fully live. Strengthen your circle. As the years pass and the noise of life begins to quiet, one truth becomes clear: the people you choose to walk with determine the quality of your journey. In your younger years, it might have felt important to have many friends, to be surrounded by activity, to be invited to every gathering. But after 40, something shifts. You begin to see that the size of your circle does not matter as much as the strength of it. A handful of people who truly understand you, support you, and celebrate you are worth more than 100 who only show up when it is convenient. Strengthening your circle means becoming intentional about who you allow close to your heart. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people drain you with constant negativity. Others take without giving. Some make you doubt yourself or keep you small. After 40, you no longer have the time or the energy to carry those weights. You begin to realize that life is too short to keep company that steals your peace. The relationships that matter most are the ones that feel like home. They are the people who check in when no one else does. The ones who remind you of your strength when you forget it yourself. They are the ones who celebrate your wins without jealousy and hold you through your losses without judgment. These relationships are not built overnight. They grow through years of trust, honesty, and shared experiences. And once you have them, they become one of the most valuable treasures in your life. Research on happiness has shown that the single strongest predictor of long-term well-being is not wealth, not fame, not success, but relationships. People who maintain strong connections live longer, healthier, and more fulfilled lives. That means your circle is not just a social preference. It is a lifeline. Choosing to invest in those connections is choosing to invest in your future self. I remember a story of a woman who, after losing her partner, found herself in one of the darkest seasons of her life. She thought she would break under the weight of grief. But it was her circle of friends who carried her through. They showed up with meals. They sat with her in silence. They made her laugh when laughter felt impossible. She said later that it was those friendships that saved her. That is the power of a strong circle. It reminds you that you are never truly alone, even when life feels unbearable. Strengthening your circle also means becoming the kind of friend you want to have. It means showing up for others, even in small ways. It means being the one who listens without trying to fix everything. It means sending a message of encouragement when someone comes to mind. It means celebrating the successes of others with genuine joy. Relationships thrive when they are nurtured, and just like a garden, they grow stronger the more you water them with attention and care. After 40, it is not about how many names are in your phone. It is about how many hearts you can truly lean on. It is about knowing that there are people who will stand beside you no matter what storms come. And it is about having the courage to let go of relationships that no longer serve your growth. This chapter of life is an invitation to build deeper, not wider. To focus less on how many people you know, and more on how well you know the few who truly matter. Because in the end, when you look back, you won't measure your life by the possessions you owned, or the titles you held. You will measure it by the faces around your table, the voices that cheered you on, and the hands that held you steady. That is why strengthening your circle is not just a principle to live by. It is a legacy to carry. Live boldly and leave a legacy. There comes a point when you begin to ask yourself bigger questions. What will I leave behind? How will people remember me? Did I live fully or did I simply exist? After 40, these questions become louder, not because life is ending, but because you begin to understand that time is precious. Every year ahead becomes an opportunity not to play small, not to live in fear, but to live boldly and leave a legacy that carries meaning. Living boldly does not always mean making grand gestures or taking wild risks. It is not about climbing the tallest mountain or quitting everything to start fresh, unless that is truly your calling. Living boldly is about choosing courage over comfort in the everyday moments of life. It is about speaking up when it would be easier to stay quiet. It is about trying something new when it would feel safer to stick to what you know. It is about embracing the possibility of failure and choosing to step forward anyway. The greatest regrets people often have are not about the things they did, but about the chances they never took. The dream they postponed until it was too late. The words they held back when someone needed to hear them. The love they were too afraid to express. After 40, you begin to realize that fear is no longer worth your time. You have lived enough years to know that setbacks do not destroy you. You have faced enough storms to know you are stronger than you once believed. So why not dare a little more? Why not give yourself permission to live the life you have always imagined instead of the one others expected of you? And yet, living boldly is only half the picture. The other half is leaving a legacy. A legacy is not just about the money you leave behind or the possessions your children inherit. A legacy is the impact you leave on hearts. It is the way people remember your kindness, your courage, your generosity, your authenticity. Legacy is built in the small moments as much as the big ones. It is in the way you treat a stranger. It is in the lessons you pass on to your children. It is in the example you set for those watching you quietly from the sidelines. Think about the women throughout history who made their mark later in life. Julia Child published her first cookbook in her late 40s, and it changed the way people saw food. Laura Ingalls Wilder did not publish her beloved books until her 60s, yet her stories live on generations later. These women remind us that it is never too late to create something that outlives you. Your legacy is not bound by your age, it is bound by your courage to act. I once met a woman who decided at 55 to start mentoring younger women in her community. She said she wanted them to avoid the mistakes she made and believe in themselves sooner than she did. Years later, dozens of those young women credited her guidance as the reason they pursued their dreams. She may not have been famous, but her legacy was alive in every life she touched. That is what it means to live boldly and leave a legacy. It means recognizing that your life is not just about you. It is about the ripple effect you create. When you choose to live boldly, you stop waiting for permission. You stop letting fear dictate your choices. And when you focus on leaving a legacy, you stop measuring your life in years and start measuring it in impact. This combination is powerful. It transforms ordinary days into meaningful ones, and it turns a single lifetime into something that continues long after you are gone. So after 40, the call is clear. Do not shrink back into the shadows of what feels safe. Step forward into the light of what feels true. Live boldly, not because life is short, but because life is precious. Leave a legacy, not because you want to be remembered, but because the world needs what only you can give. And when the time comes to look back, you will not wonder if you lived enough. You will know that you lived with courage, with purpose, and with a legacy that will keep shining long after you are gone. So here they are, 5 golden life principles after 40-day choose yourself without guilt. Redefine beauty and worth, invest in health, strengthen your circle, and live boldly with legacy in mind. Life after 40 isn't about slowing down. It's about rising higher. It's not about fading away. It's about shining brighter. This is your season of wisdom, courage, and grace. Don't waste it trying to live like someone else. Step fully into who you are, because the world doesn't just need younger women. It needs wise women, women like you.